What up, everybody? In For Season 2, Tommy Egan got put onto a new drug called Dahlia and went all in on this new drug and was already in the process of spreading Dahlia all over Chicago when he decided he wasn't going to mess with Dahlia anymore. On the other side, there is Claudia Flynn, who introduced Tommy to Dahlia, who plans to double down on Dahlia, creating state-of-the-art labs for manufacturing and hiring the best cooks possible. Currently, though, there are only two people in the whole world who know how to cook Dahlia: Tommy's brother JP and Doc Lauren Williams. Claudia found Doc after Liliana tried sending her out of town, and that is how they were able to find JP. But it wasn't shown at the end of Season 1 what Claudia did with Doc after this. I'm sure, though, that Claudia is not going to let her free, considering Doc is the key to producing Dahlia. Claudia now has her brother Vic Flynn with her, since she used the information she had on Walter against him to make Vic turn on Walter. She also has Jannard on her side, who she promised to make her Dahlia distro. Either though Tommy said he was no longer going to be selling Dahlia, he still needs to play his cards right in this situation. Otherwise, Claudia, Jannard, and Vic will have too much power in the city. So if I was Tommy, the first thing I would do would be dilute the Dahlia market by creating more competitors. So if I'm Tommy, the first thing I'm going to do is set up a meeting with Miss Soto and the Hasidic Jews to teach them how to cook Dahlia. These were Tommy's Dahlia distros in Season 1. And one thing he doesn't want to do is leave his distros hanging by getting out the Dahlia game. This could create enemies in the future. So Tommy brings JP to show how it is done, and Soto and the Hasidic Jews bring their most scientific person, I guess that's what you want to call it, and he shares the recipe with them. Of course, they're going to have to pay the price of at least a couple bricks to learn this trick, which is, I think, about $50K a key. If you remember in BMF, Big Meech signed over Terry's bins to someone just to learn a recipe on how to double his Coke. How much more valuable would it be to learn how to cook a new drug that nobody else currently knows how to produce? For that, you would have to go back to Snowfall and think about how valuable the recipe for crack was back in the 1980s. There is no amount of money that Franklin would have accepted to share that recipe, and he tried to keep it to himself for as long as possible, either though he lied to the man who he learned the recipe from and said he was going to share it with the world. I guess he did share crack with the world, he just didn't want to share the recipe. This is the same dilemma that Claudia Flynn is now facing in Book 4, Force. She is sitting on a gold mine with this new drug, but every person who learns how to cook it now becomes a potential threat. So with that said, I got to believe that there's a very good chance that Claudia, Vic, and Jannard will try to kill JP in order to preserve this recipe and keep it exclusively to their camp. But as far as Tommy and JP, after I make my call to my Chicago people, I'm making that call to New York and hitting up Tariq St. Patrick. Then Tariq and Brayden come to Chicago to learn how to cook Dahlia so they can move it in New York. Their market might be better to move Dahlia in anyway, with the college kids, Wall Street, and the clubs. Either though they are without any kind of network right now, but learning how to cook Dahlia will put them back on their feet without even having a plug. This might could even get them back on good terms with Noma. Without giving Noma the recipe, they might could tell her that they have a new drug that they could put her onto. If Noma is sold on Dahlia, this might make Tariq and Brayden too valuable in her eyes to kill. Then she might take the bounty off of their heads. This might be the perfect way to end the war without actually having to fight. Then once everybody's out of their emotions, the truth might actually come to light about what Diana and Drew did, and that Effie was originally the person targeting Noma's daughter. Or they could keep Dahlia to themselves in New York and try to start a monopoly with it like Claudia Flynn is doing in Chicago. Or they could just do what I recommended Tommy and JP do and just sell that recipe and keep their hands clean from actually selling Dahlia itself. One thing that could definitely go wrong at some point is the more people who learn how to cook this recipe, the more chances there's going to be something going wrong, like a bad batch of Dahlia getting out there and killing a bunch of people. We already heard in season 1 Diamond mention that we have not seen the other side of Dahlia yet. What is Dahlia going to do to its daily users? Is it addictive? If so, how addictive is it? Will people start stealing to get their hands on it like they do with other drugs? Will the daily users be noticeable, like a crackhead or a junkie? For example, someone who is addicted to heroin can't even get off of the drug without getting dope sick, and they go through withdrawal so bad it has the ability to kill them. This is why if I was Tommy, JP, Tariq, and Brayden, my plan would not to be to sell Dahlia, but to sell that recipe. Because, like they were calling Dahlia in season 1, a designer drug, that will have a short shelf life. I remember when ecstasy was supposed to be the big new drug. It did have a solid run of about 5 to 10 years before it slowly started fading away. The whole time though, cocaine and pills were still selling like always. So I completely understand why Walter and Diamond, the OGs of the show, want nothing to do with some designer drug. The last few years that ecstasy was around, the pills got so weak you could hardly even feel anything from them. And this could be exactly what happens to Dahlia also. Once more people learn how to cook it, they will also figure out ways to dilute it and produce it for cheaper, making the effective Dahlia weaker and weaker. And at the end of the day, this should be Tommy's goal if he's no longer going to be in the Dahlia business. Instead of letting Claudia Flynn create a monopoly in the market with state-of-the-art labs and scientists. And there you have it. Tariq and Brayden move Dahlia to New York. Leave your thoughts, theories, and predictions in the comments.